A single dad noticed bruises on a waitress, and when he quietly asked if she was safe, her world shattered in front of him because behind those marks hid a terrifying secret. And one question could change all of their lives forever. But what happens when the man who left those bruises comes back for her? Before we get into the story, comment below where in the world you are watching from today. The autumn evening wrapped its golden light around Miller's Diner, a modest establishment that had served the small town of Cedar Grove for over 4 decades. The neon open sign buzzed softly, casting a warm glow across the weathered parking lot where Jack Reynolds' pickup truck sat among a handful of other vehicles. Inside, worn leather booths squeaked as Jack settled into his usual spot, pride swelling in his chest as he watched his 16-year-old daughter Lily slide into the seat across from him. Her dark hair was still perfectly styled from her piano recital, and the excitement of the evening lingered in her bright eyes. "You were amazing tonight, sweetheart," Jack said, his voice gentle but filled with emotion. "Your mother would have been so proud." Lily's fingers traced the laminated edge of the menu she didn't need to read. They'd been coming here every Friday for years. "You think so?" she asked, a small smile playing at her lips. "I know so." Jack's throat tightened as he noticed how Lily's mannerisms mirrored Sarah's, his late wife. The way she tucked her hair behind her ear, the slight tilt of her head when she smiled. It was like seeing echoes of Sarah in their daughter. The diner hummed with the quiet conversations of other patrons and the soft clink of silverware against plates. The familiar scent of coffee and grilled onions filled the air, mixing with the sweetness of apple pie warming in the oven. "Your mother used to order the same thing every time we came here," Jack said, his weathered hands smoothing the paper napkin in front of him. "Garden burger with extra pickles never failed. And you'd always tease her about it," Lily added with a knowing grin. "Until she made you try it, and then you had to admit it wasn't half bad." Their comfortable conversation paused as their waitress approached. Emily Carter moved with careful, measured steps, her movements almost hesitant. She wore the standard diner uniform, a pale blue dress with a white apron, but something about her demeanor made her seem smaller than she was, as if she were trying to take up as little space as possible. "Good evening," Emily said softly, her voice barely carrying over the background noise of the diner. "Can I get you started with some coffee?" Jack noticed how she held her order pad close to her chest, like a shield. "That would be wonderful, thank you," he replied, his tone warm and gentle, the same way he spoke to the scared cats that sometimes showed up at his maintenance shop. As Emily returned with the coffee pot, Jack's trained eye, honed by years of working with his hands and noticing details, caught sight of the discoloration around her wrist as she poured. The sleeve of her uniform had shifted slightly, revealing what looked like finger-shaped bruises, poorly concealed by makeup. Emily must have noticed his gaze because she quickly pulled her sleeve down, her hands trembling slightly as she set the coffee pot on their table. A few drops splashed onto the formica surface, and she immediately began dabbing at them with a napkin. "I'm so sorry," she whispered, her movements becoming more frantic. "No harm done," Jack assured her, exchanging a concerned look with Lily, who had also noticed Emily's distress. "Could I get some cream, please?" Lily asked kindly, trying to ease the tension. Of course," Emily nodded, seeming grateful for the simple request. As she turned to fetch the cream, Jack noticed how she kept her eyes downcast, avoiding direct contact with anyone in the diner. When she returned with the cream, Emily's hands were still shaking. As she set it down, her sleeve rode up again, revealing more of the telling marks on her skin. This time, she nearly knocked over Lily's water glass in her haste to pull the sleeve back down. Jack had seen this before. This kind of fear, these kinds of marks. In his years of community service through his church, he'd encountered enough domestic violence situations to recognize the signs. The careful movements, the downcast eyes, the constant apologizing, they all painted a picture that made his heart ache. "Would you like to order now?" Emily asked, her pen poised above the pad, though her grip was unsteady. "Actually," Jack said, keeping his voice low and gentle, "could you sit with us for just a moment?" Emily's eyes widened slightly, fear flickering across her face. I should keep working. My manager." Please, Lily added softly. Just for a minute. After a moment's hesitation, Emily perched on the edge of the booth beside Lily, her body tense as if ready to flee at any moment. Jack leaned forward slightly, his weather-worn face filled with genuine concern. He'd spent years learning to fix broken things: furniture, houses, machines. But it was the broken people that always touched his heart the most. He chose his words carefully, speaking them with the same gentleness he'd use when handling a wounded bird. "Are you safe at home?" The question hung in the air between them, heavy with meaning. Emily's face went completely still, like a deer caught in headlights. Her carefully maintained composure cracked, and tears welled up in her eyes, spilling over before she could stop them. Her hands trembled as she pressed them against her mouth, trying to hold back a sob. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely a whisper, broken and raw with emotion. Nobody's ever asked me that before." Emily hurried away from their table, her shoulders trembling slightly as she disappeared behind the swinging kitchen doors. Jack and Lily exchanged worried glances, the cheerful mood from the recital now subdued by concern. "Dad," Lily whispered, fiddling with her paper napkin, "I've seen her here before. She's always so nice, but she never really smiles." "Not for real." Jack nodded, his weathered hands wrapped around his coffee mug. The ceramic felt warm against his palms, but his heart felt heavy. In all his years as maintenance supervisor at the local high school, he'd learned to recognize the signs of someone carrying a burden too heavy to bear alone. When Emily returned 15 minutes later, her face was composed, but her eyes were rimmed with red. She carried their orders: a club sandwich for Jack and chicken tenders for Lily, setting them down with slightly trembling hands. "I'm sorry about earlier," she said softly, her voice barely above a whisper. "And thank you for asking. Nobody ever." She trailed off, brushing at her uniform with nervous fingers. "You don't need to apologize," Jack replied gently. "Sometimes caring is just listening." Emily managed a small, grateful nod before moving to tend to other customers, but Jack noticed how she kept glancing their way as if drawing strength from their presence. Throughout their meal, Lily chatted about her recital, but her eyes kept drifting to Emily. The diner slowly emptied as the evening wore on, until only a few scattered customers remained. The fluorescent lights seemed harsher now, highlighting the tired lines around Emily's eyes as she worked. When it came time to pay, Jack noticed Emily's shift tag showed she was nearly done for the night. He couldn't shake the feeling of unease about letting her leave alone in the dark. "Would you like a ride home?" he offered, as she brought their change. "It's pretty late to be walking." Emily stepped back, her arms wrapping protectively around herself. "Oh, no, I couldn't. I mean, you've already been so kind." "I usually just walk. It's not far." "It's late," Lily chimed in innocently, her young face full of genuine concern. "No one should walk alone." Something in Lily's words seemed to reach Emily. She looked between father and daughter, and Jack could see the internal struggle playing across her features, the ingrained caution warring with desperate need. Emily glanced at the clock, then out at the dark parking lot. "If you're sure it's not too much trouble." "No trouble at all," Jack assured her, standing slowly so as not to startle her. "We'll wait while you clock out." Emily disappeared into the back once more, emerging a few minutes later with a worn jacket pulled tight around her shoulders. She followed them to Jack's truck, climbing carefully into the passenger seat while Lily hopped into the back. The drive was quiet except for Emily's soft directions. They wound through increasingly sparse streets, leaving the well-lit town center behind. The pavement gave way to gravel, and finally Emily pointed to a small trailer set back from the road. Jack's heart sank as he pulled up to the residence. The metal siding was rusted in places, and the small porch light flickered weakly. But what caught his experienced eye immediately were the obvious signs of damage around the doorframe. The deadbolt was missing, and the main lock looked barely functional. The shadows seemed to press in around the trailer, making it feel isolated despite the other mobile homes nearby. A single window glowed dimly, and through the thin curtains, Jack could make out the silhouette of what appeared to be an older woman sitting in a chair. "My neighbor watches Noah, my son, when I work late," Emily explained quietly, noting his gaze. "She's good to us." She clutched her purse tightly, keys already in hand, but hesitated before opening the door. "Thank you both, for everything." The words carried the weight of years of unspoken gratitude, as if this simple act of kindness was more than she'd known in a very long time. Jack watched as Emily hurried through the darkness to her door, fumbling slightly with the broken lock before slipping inside. The porch light flickered once more and went out completely, leaving the trailer in darkness except for that single dim window. "Dad?" Lily's voice came softly from the back seat, heavy with concern. "Those locks." "I know, sweetheart," Jack replied, his hands tightening on the steering wheel as Emily's door clicked shut. "I know." Through the thin walls of the trailer, a child's excited voice carried out into the night. "Mom's home!" Small footsteps thumped across the floor, and the door creaked open wider, revealing a young boy with tousled brown hair and his mother's gentle eyes. "Noah, honey," Emily said softly. "These are the nice people who gave me a ride home, Mr. Reynolds and his daughter Lily." Noah partially hid behind his mother, one hand clutching the hem of her uniform dress, but he managed a quiet "hello" while studying them with curious eyes. "Hi, Noah," Lily said brightly, crouching down to his level. "I like your Superman pajamas." Noah's face lit up slightly at the mention of his favorite superhero, though he remained close to Emily. An older woman appeared behind them, gathering her coat and purse. "Thanks again, Mrs. Martinez," Emily said, reaching for her wallet, but the neighbor waved her off. "No need tonight, dear. Noah was an angel as always." Mrs. Martinez patted Noah's head as she passed, nodding politely to Jack and Lily before disappearing into the darkness. Emily hesitated for a moment, then gestured inside. "Would you like to come in for a minute?" "It's not much, but we'd love to," Jack said warmly, following her lead. The trailer's interior was small but meticulously organized. Worn but clean furniture filled the modest living space. Crayon drawings covered one wall, cars, trucks, and what looked like mechanical diagrams done in a child's hand. A stack of library books about engines sat on a small table, obviously well read. "Noah loves anything with motors," Emily explained, noticing Jack's interest in the drawings. "He can name every car that drives past the diner." "That's impressive," Jack said, and Noah's face brightened further. "Want to see my favorite drawing?" the boy asked shyly. When Jack nodded, Noah scurried to the wall and pointed to a detailed sketch of what appeared to be a classic Mustang. "I saw it at the gas station. The man who owned it, let me look under the hood." While Noah showed Jack his artwork, Lily wandered into the small kitchen area. Emily followed, quickly moving to close a nearly empty cabinet that had been left ajar. But Lily had already seen inside, just a few cans of soup and a half-empty box of cereal. "Can I get anyone something to drink?" Emily offered, trying to distract from the bare shelves. "We have water, and I think there's still some juice." "No thank you," Jack said kindly, having noticed the exchange. He glanced at the broken locks on the door, then back at Emily. "But I'd like to help fix those locks, if you'll let me. I'm pretty handy with tools, it's my job at the high school." Emily's hands twisted nervously in her apron. "Oh, I couldn't ask you to. I've been meaning to save up for new ones. But with Noah's growing so fast and needing new shoes..." "Mom didn't eat dinner again tonight," Noah said suddenly, his young voice concerned. "She says she's not hungry, but her tummy makes noise sometimes." "Noah." Emily's face flushed deep red. "It's true," he insisted. "You always make sure I eat first, and then you say there's not enough left." Tears welled in Emily's eyes as she knelt down beside her son. "Sweetheart, please." Jack stepped forward, his voice gentle but firm. "Emily, let me help. I can bring some groceries tomorrow when I come to fix the locks. No strings attached, just neighbors helping neighbors." Emily looked at Noah's worried face, then back at Jack and Lily. The teenager's eyes were filled with such genuine concern that it broke through Emily's carefully constructed walls. "I don't know how I could ever repay you." "You don't have to," Lily said simply. "That's what friends are for." Emily wiped her eyes quickly, managing a shaky smile. "Thank you, both of you. I'm not used to. It's been a long time since anyone." Noah moved to his mother's side, wrapping his small arms around her waist. Then, to everyone's surprise, he stepped over to Jack and hugged him too. "Can you come back tomorrow?" he whispered, looking up with hopeful eyes. Fresh tears spilled down Emily's cheeks as she watched her usually shy son reach out so trustingly. The simple question held such weight, not just the practical need for fixed locks and food, but the deeper hunger for safety, for kindness, for connection. "Yes," Jack answered softly, carefully returning the boy's hug. "I'll come back tomorrow." The afternoon sun cast long shadows across the gravel driveway as Jack's pickup truck rumbled to a stop in front of Emily's trailer. He stepped out, his toolbox in one hand and 2 brown grocery bags balanced in the other. Lily hopped down from the passenger side, carrying her backpack and another bag of groceries. The screen door creaked as Emily opened it, wearing a faded blue waitress uniform from her morning shift. "You really didn't have to do all this," she said, but the relief in her eyes betrayed her words. "It's no trouble at all," Jack replied, his voice warm and steady. He nodded toward the broken door lock. "Mind if I take a look?" Noah appeared behind his mother, his face lighting up at the sight of Lily. "Hi," he called out, less shy than the night before. "Hey Noah," Lily smiled. "I brought some math games on my tablet. Want to work on your homework together?" Noah looked up at Emily, who nodded her permission. "Go ahead, sweetie. Stay at the kitchen table where I can see you." As the kids settled in with Noah's school books, Jack knelt by the door, examining the damaged lock. Emily hovered nearby, wringing her hands. "The lock's been broken for months," she admitted quietly. "I've been propping a chair against it at night." Jack pulled out his tools, his experienced hands already working on removing the old lock. "That's not safe, Emily. You and Noah deserve better than that." Emily's shoulders tensed at his words. She busied herself putting away the groceries, the rustle of paper bags filling the silence. From the kitchen came the sound of Lily explaining multiplication tables, mixed with Noah's occasional giggles. "Kyle, my ex-husband, he broke it," Emily finally said, her voice barely above a whisper. "The last time he showed up here." Jack's hand stilled on the doorknob, but he didn't turn around, giving Emily the space to continue. "We met when I was 24. He was charming at first, always bringing me flowers at the diner where I worked." Emily leaned against the wall, her eyes distant. "The changes were so gradual, I hardly noticed. A shove here, a cruel word there. By the time Noah was born, I was walking on eggshells." Jack worked steadily, replacing the old lock with careful precision. His silence was an invitation, free of judgment. The drinking got worse after Noah came. Then he lost his job at the garage. Emily's voice cracked. "One night, he came home drunk, angry about something I'd supposedly done wrong. Noah was crying in his crib, and Kyle, he started heading toward the nursery. I stepped in front of him, and—" She touched her wrist unconsciously, where the fading bruises still showed. "That was the night I finally left," she continued. "Grabbed Noah and whatever I could fit in my car. We've been moving from town to town ever since, trying to stay ahead of him." Jack stood up, testing the new lock. It clicked smoothly, solid and secure. "This one's reinforced steel," he said gently. "Much stronger than the old one." Emily managed a small smile, wiping quickly at her eyes. "Thank you. I don't know how to repay you for all this." "No repayment needed," Jack said firmly. He glanced toward the kitchen, where Lily was showing Noah how to solve a problem on her tablet. Sometimes folks just need a helping hand. They moved to the kitchen, where Emily started preparing a simple dinner with some of the groceries Jack had brought. The afternoon light softened into evening, and the small trailer filled with the warm smell of cooking and the sound of children's chatter. After dinner, Noah helped clear the table, carefully carrying plates to the sink. He kept stealing glances at Jack, who was showing Lily how to fix a loose cabinet hinge. "Time for bed, sweetheart," Emily called, and Noah's face fell slightly. "5 more minutes," he pleaded, but Emily shook her head. "School tomorrow, remember? Go brush your teeth." Noah trudged toward the bathroom but stopped suddenly. He turned back and tugged at Jack's sleeve, his small face serious. "Can you be my grandpa?" he asked hopefully. "Mommy says I don't have one." The room grew very quiet. Jack's hands stilled on the cabinet door, and Emily quickly turned toward the sink, but not before Jack caught sight of the tears she was trying to hide. The simple question hung in the air, heavy with all the loneliness and longing it represented. Jack looked down at Noah's earnest face, seeing in it all the trust that only a child could offer so freely. The aroma of baking chicken filled Emily's small trailer kitchen as she pulled the dish from the oven. Her hands trembled slightly as she set it on the stovetop. It wasn't much, just a simple casserole with the groceries Jack had brought. But it was the first time in years she'd cooked for anyone besides Noah. "Something smells amazing," Lily breezed through the front door, her long brown hair swinging. Jack followed behind, carrying a chocolate cake from the local bakery. "Oh, you didn't have to bring anything," Emily protested, but her eyes lit up at the sight. Noah, who had been setting the table with mismatched plates, rushed over to peek at the dessert. "Wow, is that really for us?" His eyes were wide with wonder. Jack smiled, ruffling Noah's hair. "Sure is, buddy. Every good dinner needs a proper finish." The trailer's tiny dining area barely fit the four of them, but somehow that made it cozier. Their knees bumped under the table, and Emily had to reach across Jack to pass the salt, but no one seemed to mind. The closeness felt safe. Welcome, even. "This is delicious," Jack said, helping himself to seconds of the casserole. "You're quite the cook, Emily." Emily ducked her head, unused to praise. "It's just something simple. But thank you for saying so." "Mom's the best cook ever," Noah declared loyally, though he was picking around the vegetables in his portion. "Even when we only have mac and cheese." A shadow crossed Emily's face at the reminder of leaner times, but Lily jumped in with a story about her dad's worst cooking disaster. "He tried to make spaghetti once, and the noodles turned into this giant blob. We had to chisel it out of the pot." Jack groaned good-naturedly. That pot was never the same. The laughter that followed was genuine and free, filling the small space with warmth. Emily couldn't remember the last time her trailer had held such joy. Usually, meals were quiet affairs, her and Noah eating quickly, always alert for danger. As they cleared the dishes together, Lily noticed how her father kept finding excuses to be near Emily, passing her dishes, reaching for the dish soap at the same time, their fingers brushing. She caught Emily's eye and grinned. "You know, Dad's been different lately," Lily said, her voice teasing but gentle. "He smiles a lot more when you're around." "Lily," Jack warned, but there was no real stern in his tone. A slight blush crept up his neck. Emily felt her own cheeks warm as she dried a plate, but she didn't deny it. Instead, she found herself stealing glances at Jack's strong hands as he washed the dishes, remembering how carefully they had fixed her broken locks earlier that day. Noah and Lily settled on the worn couch to play a card game, their happy chatter providing a soundtrack to the adults' comfortable silence by the sink. For a moment, Emily could almost believe this was normal. Having friends over for dinner, sharing stories, watching their children play together. "Thank you," she said softly to Jack. "Not just for the groceries or fixing things. She gestured vaguely at the scene before them. Lily teaching Noah how to shuffle cards. The lingering smell of chocolate cake, the feeling of safety that seemed to radiate from Jack's presence. Jack's eyes were warm when they met hers. "You don't need to thank me. This is what neighbors do, what friends do." Friends. The word settled in Emily's chest like a warm blanket. She hadn't had those in so long, too afraid to let anyone close enough to see the truth of her situation. The evening wrapped up naturally as Noah began to yawn. Jack and Lily gathered their things, promising to come back soon. Noah hugged them both tightly, and Emily noticed how he held on to Jack a little longer, like he was trying to memorize what it felt like to have a grandfather's embrace. After they left, Emily tucked Noah into bed, her heart fuller than it had been in years. He fell asleep quickly, clutching the deck of cards Lily had given him. The trailer felt different now, less lonely somehow. Even the shadows in the corners seemed less threatening. Emily hummed quietly as she finished tidying up, allowing herself to replay moments from the evening. Jack's smile, Lily's easy acceptance, the way they had all fit together around her small table like pieces of a puzzle she hadn't known was incomplete. It was nearly midnight when she remembered to check her old phone, the one she kept hidden away for emergencies. Her hands moved automatically to check for messages, a habit born of years of hypervigilance. One new voicemail. The timestamp showed it had come in during dinner. Her fingers shook as she pressed play, and suddenly Kyle's voice filled her ear, shattering the peace of the evening like a brick through glass. "You thought you could hide?" His words were slightly slurred but dripping with menace. "I'm coming." The phone slipped from Emily's numb fingers, clattering to the floor. Just like that, her brief moment of happiness crumbled, replaced by the familiar cold grip of terror. In her bedroom, Noah slept peacefully, still holding Lily's cards, unaware that their fragile sense of safety had just been shattered by 5 words from his father. The phone slipped from Emily's trembling fingers, clattering onto the kitchen counter. Kyle's voice, harsh and threatening, echoed in her mind. "You thought you could hide. I'm coming." Her legs felt weak, and she gripped the edge of the counter to steady herself. The clock on the microwave blinked 11:47 p.m. Too late to call anyone. But sleep would be impossible now. Through the thin walls of the trailer, she could hear Noah's gentle breathing from his bedroom. The sound that usually brought her comfort now filled her with fresh terror. What if Kyle found them? What if he tried to take Noah? Emily barely slept that night, checking the locks every hour until dawn painted the sky in weak pastels. She had to tell Jack. The thought surprised her. When had she started trusting him enough to share her fears? At 7:30 a.m., she dialed the diner. "Martha, I'm not feeling well. Could I come in for the afternoon shift instead?" Her voice shook, but her manager agreed without question. Emily's fingers hovered over Jack's number. He'd given it to her, just in case. And now here she was, about to burden him with her problems again. But Noah's safety had to come first. She pressed call. "Emily?" Jack's voice was warm with concern. "Everything okay? I need to talk to you." The words caught in her throat. Could you come over? Give me 15 minutes. True to his word, Jack's truck pulled up exactly 15 minutes later. Emily had already dropped Noah at school, her hands shaking as she'd hugged him goodbye. Now, sitting across from Jack at her small kitchen table, the morning sun casting long shadows through the window, she felt both safer and more vulnerable. "Kyle left a message last night." Emily's voice was barely above a whisper. She played the voicemail, watching Jack's expression darken as Kyle's threats filled the tiny kitchen. "Emily." Jack's voice was steady, but she could see the worry in his eyes. "We need to call the police." "No." The word burst out louder than she intended. Emily glanced around nervously, even though they were alone. "You don't understand. Kyle has friends in town. He'll know if I report him. He'll." She wrapped her arms around herself. "Last time I tried, Jack waited patiently as she gathered herself. "He broke 3 of my ribs," she finally managed. "Said next time it would be Noah who paid for my mistake." Jack's hands clenched on the table. "That's exactly why we need to report this. You and Noah need protection." "Protection?" Emily gave a bitter laugh. "A piece of paper won't stop Kyle. It never has." "Then we'll find another way." Jack leaned forward, his eyes intense. "Emily, listen to me. You don't have to face this alone anymore. I know you're scared. You have every right to be. But running and hiding isn't the answer." Emily's phone buzzed, making her jump. It was just a text from Lily. "Dad with you? Can Noah and I hang out after school? Safety in numbers?" Despite her fear, Emily felt a small smile touch her lips. She showed Jack the message. "Smart girl," Jack said softly. "She's right, you know. The more people around you, the safer you'll be. I can't ask you both to rearrange your lives for us. You're not asking. We're offering." Jack's voice was firm. "Emily, you and Noah, you've become important to us. To me." He cleared his throat, looking slightly embarrassed. "Lily hasn't been this happy in years. But what if Kyle comes?" Emily's voice cracked. "What if he hurts you or Lily? I couldn't live with that." "I've got security cameras at my house," Jack said. "Good ones, from my maintenance job. We can install them here too. Document everything. Build a case." Emily stared at her coffee cup, watching the surface ripple with her trembling hands. "I'm so tired of being afraid," she whispered. "Then let us help you be brave." Jack reached across the table, hesitated, then gently covered her hand with his. The touch was warm, steady, one step at a time. They spent the next hour making plans. Lily would pick up Noah from school with Emily's written permission. They'd spend afternoons together until Emily finished her shift. Jack would install security cameras that evening. Small steps, but each one felt like a tiny piece of armor against the fear. When Jack left for work, the trailer felt emptier than usual. Emily moved through her morning routine mechanically, getting ready for her afternoon shift. But now, alongside the fear, there was something else. A spark of determination she thought she'd lost long ago. As evening approached, Emily stood at her front door, double-checking the locks Jack had installed days earlier. Through the window, she could see the first stars appearing in the darkening sky. Her mother used to say that stars were like guardian angels, watching over those in need. "Please," she whispered, her breath fogging the glass. "Please keep us safe." The prayer felt rusty on her lips. She'd stopped believing in protection long ago, but something about Jack's steady presence and Lily's unflinching support made her want to try again. The night pressed against the windows, and Emily felt the familiar tendrils of fear creeping back in. But this time, she wasn't completely alone in the darkness. Her phone held Jack's number on speed dial, and she could still feel the warmth of his hand on hers. Tomorrow, there would be security cameras. Tomorrow, Lily would bring Noah home with stories and laughter. For now, though, Emily stood at her window, whispering prayers to the stars, feeling caught between terror and hope. The Sunday morning sun painted golden streaks across Emily's worn kitchen table as she smoothed Noah's collar for the third time. Her fingers trembled slightly as she fussed with his shirt, a hand-me-down that was slightly too big but the nicest thing he owned. "Do I look okay, Mommy?" Noah asked, fidgeting with his sleeves. Emily managed a wobbly smile. "You look very handsome, sweetheart." She glanced anxiously at her own reflection in the small mirror by the door. Her blue dress was faded but clean, her hair pulled back neatly. A gentle knock at the door made them both jump. Emily's heart settled when she heard Jack's familiar voice. "Good morning. Everyone ready?" When she opened the door, Jack stood there in a pressed button-down shirt, and Lily bounced beside him in a pretty yellow dress. "You both look wonderful," Jack said warmly, his kind eyes crinkling at the corners. The drive to church was quiet, with Noah pressed close to Emily's side in the back seat while Lily chatted about the youth group activities. Emily's stomach churned with anxiety. She hadn't been to church since before Noah was born, and the thought of walking into a room full of strangers made her palms sweat. Jack seemed to sense her unease. "Our congregation is pretty small," he explained, guiding them toward the modest white building. "Everyone's very friendly, no pressure, just come as you are." The morning sunshine streamed through stained glass windows, casting rainbow patterns across the wooden pews. Emily hesitated in the doorway, but a plump woman with silver hair immediately approached them, her face wreathed in smiles. "Jack, and you must be Emily and Noah." She clasped Emily's hand between both of hers. "I'm Martha, and I'm so glad you're here with us today. Come. There's plenty of room in our usual pew." Noah clung to Emily's hand as they followed Jack and Lily down the aisle, but his grip loosened when he saw other children his age sitting nearby. A little boy waved, and Noah offered a shy wave back. The service began with familiar hymns that brought unexpected tears to Emily's eyes. She didn't know all the words, but the music wrapped around her like a warm embrace. Noah leaned against her side, his small voice joining in when the tunes were simple enough to follow. After the service, Martha bustled them toward the fellowship hall. "We always have coffee and treats afterward," she explained, steering them to a table laden with homemade cookies and fruit. "Noah, honey, help yourself." People gathered around them gradually, introducing themselves with genuine warmth. Emily tensed at first, expecting judgment or prying questions, but found only kindness in their eyes. A tall man in a basketball coach's jacket crouched down to Noah's level. "Hey there, young man. I hear you might be interested in our youth basketball program." Noah's eyes widened. "Really? But I've never played before." The coach grinned. "That's okay. We teach everyone from scratch. Practice is Tuesday afternoons, and we've got spare shoes and equipment for new players." Mom? Noah looked up at Emily hopefully. Could I? Before Emily could worry about the cost, Martha chimed in. Oh, we have everything he'll need. My grandson just outgrew his practice clothes, barely used. And Sarah's boy has an extra pair of shoes that would fit Noah perfectly. Emily opened her mouth to protest, but Jack touched her elbow gently. Let them help, he murmured. That's what community is for. More church members approached, each offering something. A retired teacher volunteered to help Noah with his math homework. A seamstress promised to alter some donated clothes to fit them both. Someone pressed a casserole into Emily's hands, while another added a bag of fresh produce from their garden. I don't know what to say, Emily whispered to Jack, overwhelmed by the outpouring of support. You don't have to say anything, he replied softly. Just accept it. Everyone here understands what it means to need help sometimes. After the fellowship hour, they stepped out into the warm sunshine. Noah immediately ran to join Lily on the church lawn, where several children were playing tag. His laughter, bright and uninhibited, rang across the grass. Emily stood beside Jack, watching their children play. Something warm and unfamiliar bloomed in her chest. Not just gratitude, but something stronger. Hope, maybe, or courage. I haven't seen him smile like that in years, she said quietly to Jack, her voice thick with emotion. They stood together in comfortable silence, watching Noah chase Lily across the sun-dappled lawn, his face glowing with pure joy. The gentle rhythm of shared lives began to weave itself into their days. Each evening after work, Jack's old pickup truck would rumble into the gravel driveway of Emily's trailer, bringing with it the promise of warmth and companionship. Tonight was no different. As he pulled up, Lily already jumping out before the engine fully stopped. Emily watched through her window as Lily rushed to help Noah with his math homework spread across the rickety porch table. The sight made her chest tight with gratitude. She wiped her hands on her apron and stepped outside to greet them. I brought that recipe you asked for, Jack said, holding up a weathered index card. My wife's famous meatloaf. His voice caught slightly on the word wife, but his eyes were warm. Emily took the card carefully, as if handling a precious artifact. Thank you. I'll do my best to do it justice. Inside, the trailer felt different these days. No longer just a hiding place, but something closer to a home. The walls seemed brighter, filled with Noah's newest drawings and the sound of Lily's patient voice helping with multiplication tables. 7 times 8 island, Lily prompted, pointing at the worksheet. Noah's forehead wrinkled in concentration. 56. That's right, Lily high-fived him, her smile radiant. You're getting so good at this. Jack moved to the kitchen where Emily was chopping vegetables for dinner. Without a word, he picked up a knife and started helping. They worked in comfortable silence, their movements synchronized as if they'd been doing this for years instead of days. You don't have to keep coming by, Emily said softly, though her heart clenched at the thought of these visits ending. You and Lily must have better things to do. Jack's knife paused mid-chop. We like being here. His voice was gentle but firm. Unless you want us to stop? No. The word came out faster than she intended. Emily blushed, focusing intently on the carrot she was cutting. No, I just don't want to be a burden, Emily. Jack put down his knife and turned to face her. Look at them. He nodded toward the children. Noah was laughing at something Lily had said, his whole face lit up with joy. Does that look like a burden to you? Tears pricked at Emily's eyes. She shook her head, unable to speak. The week continued like this, simple moments strung together like pearls. Wednesday evening found them all gathered around Emily's small table, sharing a casserole Lily had helped make. Thursday, Jack fixed the leaky faucet while Noah watched in fascination, passing tools and asking endless questions about how things worked. Friday evening, after the kids had finished their homework, Lily pulled out her phone and started playing music. She grabbed Noah's hands and taught him how to do a silly dance, their laughter filling every corner of the small space. Emily leaned against the counter watching them. Your daughter is amazing with him, she said to Jack. He's never had a big sister figure before. She's got a big heart, Jack agreed, his voice proud. Just like her mother did. Emily glanced at him, catching the flash of old pain in his eyes. "Tell me about her," she asked softly. Jack was quiet for a long moment, rolling his coffee cup between his palms. Sarah was. She could light up a room just by walking into it, kind to everyone she met. She fought the cancer hard for Lily's sake, but... He trailed off, shaking his head. Emily reached out and touched his arm gently. "She sounds wonderful." She was. Jack covered her hand with his own for a brief moment before they both pulled away, aware of the current of something deeper running beneath their friendship. Later that night, after Jack and Lily had gone home, Emily sat on her bed looking at the recipe card he'd given her. Her fingers traced the faded handwriting of a woman she'd never met, but whose absence she could feel in the quiet moments when Jack's smile didn't quite reach his eyes. At his own home, Lily found Jack in the kitchen, making tea, a habit he'd picked up from Sarah during her illness. "Dad?" He turned, seeing his daughter's thoughtful expression. "I was thinking about Mom today," Lily said, sliding onto a kitchen stool. "While we were at Emily's." Jack's hands stilled on the kettle. "Oh? Yeah." Lily played with the charm bracelet her mother had given her. "Mom would be glad you're helping them. I can feel it." Jack's throat tightened. "You think so?" "I know so." Lily's voice was sure. "She always said helping someone is never wrong, even if it costs us something." And she hesitated, then continued softly, "I think she'd want you to be happy again." Jack pulled his daughter into a tight hug, kissing the top of her head. "When did you get so wise?" Later, after Lily had gone to bed, Jack stood at his bedroom window. The night was clear. Stars scattered across the sky like diamond dust. He thought about Emily's quiet strength, the way she protected Noah with fierce love despite her own fears. He thought about her smile, rare but genuine, and how it made something long dormant in his heart stir to life. He hadn't expected this, hadn't planned for the way Emily and Noah had slipped past his carefully constructed walls, becoming part of the rhythm of his and Lily's life. The feelings growing in his heart both thrilled and terrified him, emotions he thought he'd buried forever with Sarah. Jack pressed his forehead against the cool glass, watching his breath fog the window. The reflection that stared back at him seemed different somehow, less haunted, more alive. In the quiet of his room, he allowed himself to acknowledge the truth. Emily Carter had awakened something in him he thought had died with Sarah. The county fair blazed with colored lights against the darkening summer sky. Jack watched as Emily's eyes widened at the sight of the Ferris wheel spinning lazily above the fairgrounds. Her hands, usually fidgeting with worry, were still for once as she took in the festive scene before them. "Can we go on the carousel first?" Noah bounced on his toes, tugging at Emily's sleeve. His blue eyes sparkled with excitement, a far cry from the shy boy they'd first met. "Of course, sweetie." Emily's voice carried a lightness Jack hadn't heard before. She reached down to smooth Noah's wild brown hair, a mother's instinctive gesture. Lily, already scanning the fairground map she'd snagged at the entrance, pointed toward the glittering carousel. "It's this way! Come on, Noah!" She grabbed the younger boy's hand, and they hurried ahead through the crowd. Jack fell into step beside Emily as they followed the kids. The fair hummed with life around them, the cheerful music from rides, the calls of game vendors, and the laughter of families enjoying the warm evening. The scent of popcorn and sugar wafted through the air. "I can't remember the last time I took Noah to something like this," Emily admitted softly. Her shoulders relaxed as they walked, the tension she usually carried beginning to melt away. "Well, we're making up for lost time then," Jack smiled, steering them toward a cotton candy vendor. "Two, please," he told the teenager behind the counter, pulling out his wallet. Emily started to protest, but Jack just handed her the fluffy pink cloud with a gentle shake of his head. "Tonight's about fun, remember?" She took a small bite, and her face lit up with childlike delight. "I forgot how good this is," she laughed, a few wisps of sugar clinging to her lip. They reached the carousel, just as Lily and Noah were choosing their horses. Noah selected a black stallion with a flowing mane, while Lily picked a white horse decorated with roses. Jack and Emily stood at the fence, watching as the ride began to spin. "Look at me, Mom," Noah called out, waving with both hands. Emily waved back, her cotton candy forgotten as she watched her son's joy. "He's different now," she said quietly. "Happier. Ever since." She trailed off, but Jack understood. Ever since they'd entered their lives. After the carousel, they tried other rides. The teacups that made them all dizzy. The funhouse, with its warped mirrors that had Noah giggling at their stretched reflections. Jack noticed how Emily seemed to shed years of worry with each passing hour, her laugh coming easier, her smile staying longer. Near the game stalls, Noah stopped dead in his tracks, mesmerized by a display of toy cars hanging as prizes. His eyes fixed on a shiny red pickup truck, almost identical to Jack's. "Would you like to try winning one?" Jack asked, already reaching for his wallet. Noah nodded eagerly, then looked at his mother for permission. Emily hesitated for just a moment before nodding. "Go ahead, sweetheart." The game was simple. Knock down 3 milk bottles with a baseball. Noah's first throw went wide, the second barely grazed the bottles. His small shoulders slumped in disappointment. "Here, buddy." Jack knelt beside him. "Let me show you a trick my dad taught me." He positioned Noah's arm, adjusted his stance. "Now, keep your eye right on the middle bottle." The ball flew straight and true, sending all 3 bottles clattering to the ground. Noah jumped up and down as the vendor handed him the red truck, clutching it to his chest like treasure. "Thank you, Jack." He threw his arms around Jack's waist in a tight hug. They found a bench to rest, watching as Lily took Noah to the face-painting station nearby. Emily's cotton candy was long gone, but a contentment lingered on her face that made her look younger, unburdened. "You're good with him," she said softly. "Noah, you know exactly what to say, how to make him feel special." Jack thought about his own father, about the patience he'd shown teaching him carpentry, fishing, life. "Every kid deserves to feel special," he replied simply. The evening wound down with a final ride on the Ferris wheel. They paired off, Lily with Noah in one car, Jack and Emily in another. As they rose above the fairgrounds, the lights below twinkled like earthbound stars. Emily's shoulder brushed against Jack's, and neither moved away. At the very top, their car swayed gently in the breeze. The fair spread out below them, a tapestry of color and movement. Emily's face was peaceful in the soft light. Years of fear and worry smoothed the way for these precious moments. The drive home was quiet, both kids dozing in the back seat. Noah still clutched his toy truck, his face painted with a blue butterfly that matched Lily's. Through the rearview mirror, Jack caught glimpses of Emily gazing out the window at the star-filled sky, her expression thoughtful. As they turned onto the familiar gravel road leading to her trailer, Jack heard Emily's whispered words, barely audible over the engine's hum. "Maybe life can be different." The fluorescent lights of Joe's diner buzzed softly as Emily wiped down the last table. Her muscles ached from the long shift, but she managed a small smile thinking of Noah safe at home with Mrs. Henderson from church watching him. The thought of Jack and Lily coming over tomorrow for Sunday dinner warmed her heart, making the evening's work feel lighter. "Good night, Joe," she called toward the kitchen, gathering her purse and jacket. The owner's gruff voice echoed back with his usual caring tone. "Get home safe, Emily." The night air felt crisp against her face as she stepped outside. The parking lot was empty except for her old Honda, sitting alone under the flickering street lamp. Emily fumbled in her purse for her keys, then stopped dead in her tracks. Her heart slammed against her ribs. Kyle was there, leaning casually against her driver's side door as if he had every right to be there. His familiar silhouette sent ice through her veins. "Hey, baby," he drawled, pushing himself off the car. "Miss me?" Emily's fingers trembled as she clutched her purse closer. Her throat went dry, and the keys dug painfully into her palm. Kyle took a step forward, and she instinctively stepped back. "What are you doing here?" she managed to whisper, hating how small her voice sounded. Kyle's smile didn't reach his eyes. "That's not much of a welcome for your husband, is it?" He moved closer, and Emily could smell the alcohol on his breath. "You look good. Better than when I left. Got yourself a nice little setup here, don't you?" "Ex-husband," Emily corrected, finding a sliver of strength. "You need to leave." Kyle's face darkened. "Leave? I just got here, and we've got some things to discuss." He took another step, closing the distance between them. Like how you took my son and ran. Like how you've been playing house with some old man. Emily's back hit the diner's wall. How did you— Small town, baby. People talk. Kyle's hand shot out, slamming against the wall beside her head. You think you can replace me? Make some nice new family while I rot? Please, Emily whispered, tears streaming down her face. Just go. Not without you, Kyle growled. You're coming home with me. Tonight. We're going to be a family again, whether you like it or not. Emily's mind raced to Noah, to Jack, to all the progress she'd made. Something inside her solidified. No, she said, her voice stronger. I'm not going anywhere with you. Kyle's face contorted with rage. He grabbed her arm, squeezing hard enough to bruise. You don't get to say no to me. In a burst of desperate energy, Emily wrenched free and darted past him, running back toward the diner's entrance. She could hear Kyle cursing behind her as she yanked the door open, nearly falling inside. Joe! She screamed, running toward the kitchen. Call the police! She heard the back door slam, Kyle fleeing at the sound of witnesses. Her hands shook violently as she pulled out her phone, hitting Jack's number on speed dial. It rang only once before his warm, steady voice answered. Emily? What's wrong? He's here, she sobbed, sliding down the wall to sit on the floor. Kyle found me at the diner. He was waiting by my car. Are you safe? Are you inside? Jack's voice was urgent, and she could hear him already moving, keys jingling. Yes, she managed. I ran inside. Joe's calling the police. I'm on my way. Don't move. Stay where there are people. Emily hugged herself, trying to stop shaking as Joe came out of the kitchen with a baseball bat in one hand and a concerned expression on his weathered face. Police are coming, he said gruffly, standing guard by the door. You okay, kid? She nodded numbly, keeping the phone pressed to her ear as Jack's truck engine roared in the background. The next 10 minutes felt like hours, but finally, she heard the familiar rumble of Jack's pickup pulling into the lot. He burst through the door, eyes scanning frantically until he found her. Without a word, he crossed the room and knelt beside her, strong hands gentle on her shoulders as he checked her for injuries. Did he hurt you? Jack asked, his voice tight with concern. Emily shook her head, then noticed the bruises forming on her arm where Kyle had grabbed her. Jack's jaw clenched at the sight, but his touch remained tender as he helped her to her feet. The police arrived moments later, taking statements and searching the area, but Kyle was long gone. Officer Martinez, a kind-faced woman, assured Emily they would increase patrols around both the diner and her home. Later, standing in the parking lot with Jack's solid presence beside her, Emily stared at her car, still parked where Kyle had been waiting. She clung to Jack's arm, her voice barely audible as she whispered, "He's found us." Jack moved closer, protective and steady. Emily could feel his arm trembling slightly, not with fear, but with carefully controlled anger at what Kyle had done. She pressed her face against his shoulder, drawing strength from his unwavering support as the reality of the situation settled over them like a heavy blanket. The parking lot lights cast long shadows across the pavement, and somewhere in the distance, a police siren wailed. Emily's world had shifted again, the fragile piece she'd built cracking under the weight of Kyle's return. But this time was different. This time, she wasn't alone. Joe stood in the doorway of the diner, bat still in hand, watching over them. Officer Martinez spoke quietly into her radio nearby. And Jack, steady, protective Jack, remained right beside her, a solid anchor in the storm that had suddenly engulfed her life once again. The night wrapped around them, still and heavy with tension. Emily's fingers tightened on Jack's arm as she whispered those 3 terrifying words again. He's found us. Emily's hands trembled as she dialed Jack's number again, pacing in the diner's break room. Her heart hadn't stopped racing since seeing Kyle in the parking lot. The phone rang twice before Jack's steady voice answered. Emily? Are you still at the diner? Yes, she whispered, glancing nervously at the door. Jack, I'm so sorry to keep bothering you. Stop that right now, he said firmly but gently. I'm making some calls. Sheriff Martinez is sending extra patrols to your neighborhood. And I've got Pastor Mike reaching out to the church community. Emily sank into a plastic chair, clutching the phone. The church community? But I don't want to be a burden to everyone. You're family now, Jack said simply. That's what family does. Within an hour, Jack's truck pulled up outside the diner. Emily watched through the window as he spoke with 2 police officers in the parking lot, his tall frame steady and reassuring under the streetlights. When he came inside, Lily was with him, her young face full of concern. "Noah's okay," Lily said immediately, knowing Emily would ask. "Mrs. Henderson said he's sleeping. Dad picked me up on the way here because I wanted to help too." Emily's eyes welled up at the teenager's kindness. Jack pulled up chairs to the break room table, his expression serious but calm. "I've been making arrangements," he said. "Sheriff Martinez is increasing patrols around your neighborhood. Pastor Mike has activated our church's safety network. We've got volunteers who'll be keeping an eye out, taking shifts." "But that's too much," Emily protested weakly. "All these people shouldn't have to—" "Emily." Jack's voice was gentle but firm. "Look at me." She raised her eyes to meet his steady gaze. "You're not alone anymore. Every person I called tonight, they wanted to help. They've been waiting for a chance to show you that you matter." Lily nodded eagerly. "Mrs. Peterson from the choir? She's already organizing a schedule for people to drive by your street regularly. And Mr. Thompson, you know, the retired police officer, he's going to park his car near your trailer some nights." Emily's hands twisted in her lap. "But what if Kyle tries something? What if he goes after you or Lily? I couldn't bear it if something happened to either of you because of me." Jack reached across the table, his weathered hand covering her fidgeting ones. "We're already in this together," he said softly. "Have been since that first night I asked if you were safe. I'm not walking away now, and neither is Lily." "Dad's right," Lily added, her young face serious. "Mom always told me that doing the right thing isn't always easy, but it's always worth it. You and Noah are worth it." Emily's throat tightened at their words. Jack squeezed her hand gently before standing up. "Come on," he said. "Let's get you home to Noah. I picked up some of that pasta he likes on the way here." The drive home was quiet, with Lily sitting close to Emily in the back seat of Jack's truck. When they pulled up to the trailer, Mrs. Henderson met them at the door, her kind face relieved to see them. Noah was curled up on the couch, having dozed off while waiting. "He insisted on staying up until his mama got home," Mrs. Henderson whispered, gathering her things. "Such a sweet boy." After she left, Jack moved quietly around Emily's small kitchen, heating up the pasta while Lily gently woke Noah. The boy's face lit up when he saw them all there. "Mama, Mr. Jack, Miss Lily." He rubbed his eyes sleepily. "Are we having a special dinner?" "We sure are, buddy," Jack said, setting plates on the table. "How about you say grace for us?" They joined hands around the small table, Noah's small fingers warm in Emily's grip. He closed his eyes solemnly, his child's voice clear in the quiet kitchen. "Dear God, thank you for the food, and thank you especially for Mr. Jack and Miss Lily." He squeezed Emily's hand. "Thank you for giving them to us when we were scared and alone, and please keep Mama safe. Amen." Emily couldn't hold back the tears that spilled down her cheeks. Noah's simple prayer, full of such trust and gratitude, broke something open in her heart. She felt Jack's steady presence beside her, Lily's gentle hand on her shoulder, and for the first time in years, the weight of carrying everything alone began to lift. Through her tears, she saw the love in this makeshift family gathered around her tiny table, and though fear still lingered at the edges of her mind, she wasn't facing it alone anymore. These people, this man and his daughter, had chosen to stand with her and Noah, to shield them with their strength and love. The pasta grew cold on their plates as they sat together, connected by joined hands and shared tears, while outside, a patrol car rolled quietly past, its presence a reminder that they were surrounded by a community that refused to let them face the darkness alone. The evening sun cast long shadows through the diner's windows as Jack and Lily settled into their usual booth. The familiar scent of coffee and fresh-baked pie filled the air. Emily moved between tables with practiced grace, her gentle smile brightening when she spotted them. "I saved you both a slice of cherry pie," she said, approaching their table with a coffee pot. "Noah's favorite. He helped me bake them this morning before school. Lily's face lit up. You're teaching Noah to bake? He insists on helping, Emily replied, warmth creeping into her voice. Says he wants to learn everything. Jack watched the exchange, noticing how Emily seemed more relaxed despite the earlier parking lot incident. The diner was quiet, with only a few regulars scattered around. Mr. Peterson reading his newspaper in the corner, and the Brooks sisters sharing their usual early dinner. The bell above the door chimed. Emily turned, the coffee pot still in hand, and the color drained from her face. Kyle Carter stood in the doorway, his eyes wild and bloodshot, his jaw clenched. Well, isn't this cozy? Kyle's voice cut through the peaceful atmosphere. Playing house with someone else's family? Jack stood immediately, positioning himself between Emily and Kyle. Lily grabbed Emily's trembling hand, helping her set down the coffee pot before it could slip from her grasp. Kyle, Emily's voice quivered. Please, leave. Leave? Kyle's laugh was harsh. I've been watching you, living it up while keeping my son from me. He took an unsteady step forward. Acting like this old man is his daddy now? Sir. Jack's voice was firm but calm. You need to step outside. The diner had gone completely silent. Mr. Peterson slowly folded his newspaper, and the Brooks sisters clutched each other's hands. Martha, the cook, peered out from the kitchen window, her hand already on the phone. Kyle's face twisted. Mind your own business, old man. This is between me and my wife. Ex-wife, Emily said, finding a thread of strength. We're divorced, Kyle. You lost your rights when... When? What? Kyle snarled, taking another step. When you ran? When you turned my own son against me? A small voice suddenly piped up from near the kitchen. Leave Mommy alone. Emily's heart stopped. Noah stood in the back doorway, his backpack still on from where he must have snuck in after school instead of going to the babysitter's. Noah, baby, no, Emily gasped. Stay back. Kyle's attention snapped to his son. Noah, come here, boy. Come to your father. Noah backed away, fear evident in his young face. Kyle lunged forward, shoving past Jack with surprising force. Emily darted around the counter, racing to reach Noah first. Don't you touch him, she cried. Everything happened in a blur. Kyle grabbed Emily's arm roughly. Jack moved to intervene. Noah screamed. Lily was already on the phone with 911. Emily twisted free, only to be shoved hard against the counter as she positioned herself in front of Noah. The impact knocked the wind from her lungs, but she stayed standing, shielding her son. Jack grabbed Kyle's shoulder, spinning him around. Kyle's fist connected with Jack's jaw, but Jack held his ground. The police are coming! Lily shouted, her voice strong despite her fear. Kyle tried to reach for Noah again, but Emily pushed back, her maternal instinct giving her strength she didn't know she had. You won't hurt him again! The scuffle continued, with Jack trying to restrain Kyle without escalating the violence. Emily kept Noah behind her, even as her vision began to blur from where she'd hit her head on the counter. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer. Kyle's face contorted with rage and desperation. He made one final lunge, shoving Emily hard. She stumbled, her head spinning, but managed to keep Noah safe behind her. The police burst through the door, weapons drawn. Hands up! Everyone freeze! Kyle spun to run, but was quickly tackled and handcuffed. Noah sobbed, clinging to his mother's legs. Emily swayed on her feet, the adrenaline fading and pain taking its place. Emily? Jack's voice seemed to come from far away. Emily, look at me. She tried to focus on his face, but the diner was spinning. Her legs gave out, and she felt Jack's strong arms catch her before she could hit the floor. Noah's frightened voice called out, Mommy! An ambulance is coming. Lily's steady voice reassured them. I called them too. Noah, come here, sweetie. Let the paramedics help your mom. Emily heard the sirens getting closer as she lay in Jack's arms, his worried face the last thing she saw before everything went dark. The last thing she felt was his hand gently cradling her head, his voice urging her to hold on. The steady beep of hospital monitors filled the sterile room. Harsh fluorescent lights cast shadows across Emily's pale face as her eyelids fluttered open. Her whole body ached, and the white hospital gown felt rough against her bruised skin. For a moment, panic gripped her chest. Where was Noah? A warm hand squeezed hers gently. "Noah's right here." Jack's steady voice came from beside her. "He's safe." Emily turned her head slowly, wincing at the movement. Jack sat in a chair, pulled close to her bed, while Noah was curled up asleep in his lap. Lily dozed in another chair by the window, a children's book open across her knees. "I'm so sorry," Emily whispered, her voice cracking. Tears welled up in her eyes. "I never meant to drag you all into this mess. You shouldn't have to deal with my problems." Jack leaned forward carefully, trying not to disturb Noah. "Emily, listen to me. You have nothing to apologize for. None of this is your fault. But Kyle could have hurt you. Or Lily. And Noah." Her voice broke on her son's name. "I'm just causing trouble for everyone who tries to help me." "That's not true," Jack said firmly, his kind eyes holding hers. "You're worth protecting, Emily. Worth fighting for. Kyle is the only one causing trouble here, not you." Noah stirred at the sound of their voices, lifting his head sleepily. When he saw Emily awake, his eyes went wide. "Mommy." He scrambled down from Jack's lap but hesitated at the edge of the bed, afraid of hurting her. Emily managed a small smile. "It's okay, sweetie. Come here." She patted the space beside her, and Noah carefully climbed up, snuggling against her side. "Are you gonna be okay?" Noah asked in a small voice. "I will be, baby. The doctors are taking good care of me." Noah looked up at Jack with worried eyes. "Will you stay until Mommy gets better, please?" Jack's expression softened as he ruffled Noah's hair. "Of course I will, buddy. I'm not going anywhere." The movement woke Lily, who blinked and straightened in her chair. Seeing everyone awake, she moved to stand beside Noah at the bed. "How are you feeling, Emily?" "I've been better," Emily admitted with a weak attempt at humor. "I'm sorry you had to see all that at the diner." Lily shook her head firmly. "Don't apologize. We're just glad you're okay." She turned to Noah, putting an arm around his shoulders. "And I promise I won't leave you alone, Noah. We're family now." Emily's breath caught at those words. Family. She looked at these people gathered around her hospital bed. Jack's steady presence. Lily's fierce protectiveness. Noah's trust in them both. Tears spilled down her cheeks, but these were different from the earlier ones of shame and guilt. "Thank you," she whispered. "All of you." Jack reached for her hand again, squeezing gently. "Get some rest, Emily. We'll be right here." Noah curled closer, careful of her injuries. "Love you, Mommy." "Love you too, sweetheart," Emily murmured. The pain medication was making her drowsy again, but for the first time in years, Emily felt truly safe as she drifted off. The steady sound of Jack's breathing, Noah's warm weight against her side, and Lily's soft humming created a cocoon of comfort around her. Her last conscious thought before sleep claimed her was how strange and wonderful it felt to have people who wouldn't give up on her, who saw her worth even when she couldn't see it herself. Her newfound family's presence followed her into peaceful dreams, keeping the shadows at bay. The morning sun streamed through the hospital window, casting warm squares of light across Emily's bed. 3 days had passed since the incident at the diner, and though the bruises were fading to yellow-green splotches, the fear in her heart remained raw and fresh. Jack had been there every day, bringing Noah after school and staying until visiting hours ended. The nurses had grown used to seeing him in the wooden chair beside Emily's bed, his tall frame somehow making the institutional furniture look smaller. They'd smile, knowingly, when he'd arrive with fresh flowers or Noah's latest artwork from class. Today, though, Emily's room felt heavier with unspoken words. She'd barely touched her breakfast tray, pushing the scrambled eggs around with her plastic fork, while Noah chattered about his morning at school. When Lily offered to take Noah to the cafeteria for ice cream, Emily knew Jack had arranged it so they could talk. As soon as the kids were gone, Emily pulled herself up straighter against the pillows, wincing slightly. "Jack," she began, her voice quiet but determined, "I've been thinking." He leaned forward in his chair, his kind eyes watching her carefully. "About what?" "About leaving." The words tumbled out in a rush. Maybe it's time for Noah and me to move on. Start fresh, somewhere else. Her fingers twisted the thin hospital blanket. Kyle knows where we are now. He won't stop until... She couldn't finish the sentence. Jack's expression shifted, concern deepening the lines around his eyes. Emily, where would you go? I don't know. She stared down at her hands. Maybe west, or up north. Somewhere far enough that he can't find us. And then what? Jack's voice was gentle but firm. Another town, another trailer. Always looking over your shoulder? Emily's eyes burned with tears she refused to let fall. At least you and Lily would be safe. I can't bear the thought of him hurting anyone else because of me. Emily. Jack moved his chair closer. Close enough that she could see the flecks of gray in his beard, the warmth in his weathered face. Running isn't the answer. It never was. You don't understand, she whispered. You haven't lived with this fear. No, I haven't, he acknowledged. But I've watched you living with it, and I've seen what it's doing to you and Noah. He paused, choosing his words carefully. Every time you run, you give Kyle more power. You let him control your life, even when he's not there. Emily's breath caught in her throat. I'm just trying to protect my son. I know you are. You're an amazing mother. Jack's voice grew softer. But think about what message running sends to Noah. That the bad guys win. That there's no justice, no hope for change. The truth of his words stung. Emily remembered how Noah had looked in the diner, terrified but trying to be brave. How he'd stood up to Kyle shouting, "Leave my mommy alone!" before Jack could pull him back. Her son was developing the same fear-driven instincts she had, and the thought broke her heart. The police have Kyle in custody, Jack continued. The whole diner saw what happened. There are witnesses this time, Emily, real charges that will stick. Until he gets out again, she countered, but her voice wavered. Then we'll be ready. You have people on your side now. The church, the community, lawyers who want to help. Jack leaned back, his eyes never leaving her face. You deserve freedom, Emily. Real freedom, not just running from town to town. She could feel the weight of his words, the truth in them fighting against years of learned helplessness. I don't know if I'm strong enough, she admitted. You're stronger than you think. I've seen it. Jack's voice carried absolute conviction. The way you protect Noah, how hard you work, how you keep going despite everything, that's real strength. Through the window, Emily could see the hospital's garden below, where patients in wheelchairs sat enjoying the spring sunshine. A young mother walked slowly along the path, holding her child's hand, free and unafraid. The sight made her chest ache with longing. What if we stay, she said slowly, and he still finds a way to hurt us? Then we'll face it together. Jack's reply was immediate and firm. You're not alone anymore, Emily. You have a whole community behind you now. Emily turned away from him then, facing the window fully. Outside, a bird landed on the windowsill, tilted its head as if studying her, then flew away. She watched it soar into the distance, torn between the instinct to follow, to flee to somewhere new and anonymous, and the desperate hope that maybe, just maybe, Jack was right. The silence stretched between them, heavy with possibility and fear. In that quiet moment, Emily stood at a crossroads. Behind her lay the familiar path of running, of starting over, of living half a life. Ahead was something unknown and terrifying, the chance to stand her ground, to fight back, to believe in the possibility of real freedom. Through the window's reflection, she could see Jack waiting patiently, his presence steady and reassuring. He didn't push for an answer, didn't try to fill the silence with more arguments. He simply sat there, offering the quiet strength that had somehow become such an essential part of her world. The church's small meeting room felt warm and safe, with soft yellow walls and comfortable chairs arranged in a circle. Emily sat rigid at first, her fingers twisting the tissue in her lap until it was nothing but shreds. Jack's steady presence in the chair beside her helped anchor her racing thoughts. Sarah Martinez, the domestic abuse advocate, had kind eyes and a gentle voice that reminded Emily of her grandmother. There's no pressure here, Sarah assured her, settling into her seat. We're just going to talk about your options. Emily glanced at Jack, who gave her an encouraging nod. "I don't know where to start," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "Start anywhere you feel comfortable," Sarah suggested, opening her notebook. "Many women find it helpful to begin with what brought them here today." Taking a deep breath, Emily looked down at her hands. The hospital bracelet was still on her wrist, a plastic reminder of Kyle's latest attack. I thought if I just took Noah and ran far enough, we'd be safe. But Kyle found us anyway." Sarah nodded sympathetically. "That's a common belief, Emily. But running often gives abusers more power. They count on our fear to keep us isolated." "That's what Jack said," Emily murmured, stealing another glance at him. "Because it's true," Sarah confirmed. She pulled out several pamphlets and spread them on the small table between them. "You have legal options, Emily. There's a whole network of support available: emergency housing, counseling, legal aid, support groups." As Sarah explained each resource, Emily felt something shift inside her. Each pamphlet, each program represented a door opening, a possibility she hadn't known existed. She wasn't alone anymore, trapped in a corner with nowhere to turn. "The restraining order is just temporary," Sarah explained, pointing to one of the documents. "But pressing charges could lead to a more permanent solution. Kyle violated his parole by attacking you at the diner. With witnesses and security footage, there's a strong case." Emily's hands trembled. "What if he gets angry? What if—" "That's why we have safeguards in place," Sarah interjected gently. "You and Noah would have protection. The church has already offered to help with temporary housing in a secure location while the case proceeds." Jack leaned forward slightly. "Emily, remember what you told Noah last week about standing up to the playground bully?" Emily's eyes welled up as she remembered. Noah had been scared to go to school after a bigger kid took his lunch money. She'd told him that bullies only had power if you let them scare you into silence. "You're not alone this time," Jack continued softly. "You have people who will stand with you every step of the way." Sarah smiled warmly. "Jack's right. And I've seen countless women rebuild their lives, Emily. It starts with believing you deserve better." Emily wiped her eyes with what remained of her tissue. "Noah deserves better," she said firmly. "You both do," Jack and Sarah said, almost in unison. For the next hour, Sarah walked Emily through various scenarios and options. With each explanation, each question answered, Emily felt the fog of fear beginning to lift. There were concrete steps she could take, a path forward she could actually see. "Would you like to file the charges today?" Sarah asked gently when they'd finished reviewing everything. "I can have the paperwork ready in 20 minutes, and I'll walk you through every page." Emily looked at Jack, who had been her silent support through the entire meeting. "Will you stay?" "As long as you need me to," he promised. While Sarah stepped out to prepare the documents, Emily stood and walked to the window. The church playground was visible from here, and she could imagine Noah playing there, laughing without looking over his shoulder in fear. "You're doing the right thing," Jack said quietly, coming to stand beside her. "I know," Emily replied, and for the first time, she truly believed it. "I just wish I'd been brave enough to do it sooner." "You were brave enough to leave in the first place," Jack reminded her. "You were brave enough to protect Noah all these years. And you're brave enough now to take this step." Sarah returned with a folder of papers, setting them carefully on the table. "Everything's ready whenever you are, Emily." Emily took her seat again, accepting the pen Sarah offered. Jack moved his chair closer, and without hesitation, Emily reached for his hand. His larger one enveloped hers, warm and reassuring. Page by page, Sarah explained each document. Emily listened carefully, asking questions when she needed clarification. The words on the papers transformed Kyle's actions, from shameful secrets into clear violations of law. Assault, battery, harassment, stalking, child endangerment. When she reached the final signature line, Emily paused. This wasn't just her name she was signing. It was a declaration that she and Noah deserved peace. It was permission to stop running and start living. Jack squeezed her hand gently, and Emily signed her name. The courthouse loomed ahead, its stone columns stretching toward the morning sky. Emily's hands shook as she smoothed her borrowed navy dress, a gift from one of the church ladies. Jack walked beside her, his presence as steady as always. Lily had stayed home with Noah, keeping him distracted with board games and cookies. Emily's heart thundered against her ribs as they climbed the courthouse steps. Her lawyer, Mrs. Martinez, waited at the top, her kind face offering a reassuring smile. "Remember," she said softly, "just tell the truth. That's all you need to do." Inside the courtroom, Emily's fingers dug into the wooden railing as she took her place on the witness stand. The familiar fear threatened to choke her when Kyle entered, but she forced herself to look straight ahead. He appeared smaller somehow, his swagger diminished by prison clothes and handcuffs. "Please state your name for the record," the court clerk requested. "Emily Marie Carter." Her voice quavered but held. Mrs. Martinez approached, her heels clicking softly on the polished floor. "Mrs. Carter, can you tell the court about your relationship with the defendant?" Emily took a deep breath, remembering Jack's words. "Your story matters. Your truth matters." She began speaking, her voice growing stronger with each word. "I met Kyle when I was 22. At first he was charming, attentive. But after we married, things changed." The memories spilled out like water from a broken dam. The first time Kyle had grabbed her arm so hard it bruised. The night he'd thrown a plate at the wall because dinner was late. The Christmas morning he'd terrorized her and Noah over a missing receipt. Her voice cracked when she described hiding in closets with Noah, teaching him to be quiet as a mouse. "And the incident at the diner?" Mrs. Martinez prompted gently. Emily's hand unconsciously touched her side where the bruises were still fading. "Kyle showed up, during my shift. He was angry, out of control. He tried to force me to leave with him. When I refused, he got violent. My son was there." Her voice broke. "My 8-year-old son saw everything." From his seat in the gallery, Jack's presence radiated support. Emily drew strength from it, continuing her testimony despite Kyle's dark glares. She described the threatening phone calls, the stalking, the constant fear. The prosecutor presented evidence. Photographs of Emily's injuries, both old and recent. Police reports. The recording of Kyle's threatening voicemail. Medical records documenting years of accidents. The diner's security footage showing Kyle's violent assault. Kyle's lawyer tried to paint Emily as unstable, suggesting she had invited the contact, but the truth stood stronger than his accusations. Other witnesses took the stand, the diner's owner, describing Kyle's threatening behavior, police officers detailing the assault, even Kyle's former boss testifying about his violent outbursts at work. Through it all, Emily kept her eyes fixed either on Mrs. Martinez or on Jack. She wouldn't let Kyle's presence shrink her anymore. When the judge finally spoke, his voice carried the weight of authority. "Mr. Carter, your actions demonstrate a clear pattern of domestic violence and stalking. The evidence is overwhelming." He turned kind eyes toward Emily. "Mrs. Carter, this court grants your petition for permanent protection." Emily barely heard Kyle's sentence through the rushing in her ears. Years, not months this time. Real prison time. The judge's words washed over her. "No contact. Mandatory counseling. Violation will result in additional charges." It was over. Really over. The bailiff led Kyle away. As he passed, Emily forced herself to look directly at him, not in challenge, but to prove to herself that she could. His familiar sneer no longer held power over her. The courtroom began to empty. Emily's legs felt wobbly as she stood, gathering her purse and the folder of documents. Jack waited patiently while she thanked Mrs. Martinez, his quiet presence a reminder that she wasn't alone anymore. Outside, the spring sunshine felt different, somehow cleaner, brighter. Emily made it down the courthouse steps before the emotions hit her all at once. Her knees buckled slightly, and Jack's strong arms steadied her. She turned into his shoulder, tears flowing freely now. But these weren't tears of fear or despair, they were tears of relief, of release, of a burden finally lifted. Years of tension and terror flowed out with each sob. Jack held her gently, one hand rubbing circles on her back like she often did for Noah after a nightmare. He didn't try to shush her or offer empty platitudes. He simply let her cry, understanding that these tears were healing ones. When Emily finally lifted her head, wiping her eyes with the tissue Jack offered, she saw her own relief mirrored in his face. "It's really over," she whispered, her voice rough from crying. "Yes," Jack said softly, his own eyes suspiciously bright. "You did it, Emily. You stood up. You told your truth." She leaned against his solid shoulder again, letting the spring breeze dry her tears. For the first time in years, she could breathe deeply without fear tightening her chest. The future stretched ahead, uncertain but full of possibility rather than dread. The morning sun painted golden streaks across the driveway as Emily stood before the small brick house, key trembling in her hand. It wasn't fancy, just a modest two-bedroom rental on Maple Street, but to her, it was everything. Clean windows, solid locks, a tiny front yard where Noah could play safely. "Well?" Jack's gentle voice came from behind her. "Are you going to open it?" Emily took a deep breath and slid the key into the lock. The door swung open with a gentle creak, revealing empty rooms full of possibility. Noah darted past her, his sneakers squeaking on the hardwood floors. Mom, which room is mine?" His excited voice echoed through the empty space. Lily appeared at Emily's side, carrying a box labeled "Kitchen" in her neat handwriting. "The one on the right has the best light for drawing," she told Noah with a conspiratorial wink. "Perfect for your car sketches." Jack followed with his toolbox and 2 gallons of paint. "These walls could use some color," he said, setting everything down in what would become the living room. "Good thing I know a couple of expert painters." He glanced at Lily and Noah, who both grinned. They spent the morning painting Noah's room a cheerful sky blue. Emily couldn't help but smile as she watched Jack patiently teach Noah how to use a roller without dripping paint everywhere. The boy hung on every word, his face serious with concentration. "Like this, Grant?" Noah caught himself and blushed. "I mean, Mr. Jack?" Emily's heart squeezed at the slip, but Jack just smiled and adjusted Noah's grip on the roller. "Perfect form, buddy! You're a natural!" Lily had taken charge of the kitchen, carefully lining the cabinets with contact paper and arranging Emily's modest collection of dishes. The teenager hummed as she worked, the same melody she'd played at her recital the night Emily's life changed forever. By afternoon, the paint fumes had driven them outside for a break. They sat on the front steps, sharing sandwiches and lemonade from a cooler Jack had packed. The spring breeze carried the scent of fresh-cut grass and new beginnings. "The roses need some attention," Jack observed, nodding toward the scraggly bushes flanking the steps. "I could show you how to prune them back. They'll bloom beautifully with a little care." Emily's throat tightened at his words. How many things in her life had bloomed under Jack's careful attention? She watched as Noah and Lily chased each other around the tiny yard, their laughter floating on the breeze. Later, they tackled the living room together. Lily had convinced her dad to let her pick the color, a warm, buttery yellow that made the space feel like sunshine. Emily stood on a stepladder, cutting in around the ceiling with careful brush strokes, while Jack rolled the walls below. "You're good at this," he commented, looking up at her work. "Steady hand." "Years of carrying plates helped with that," Emily replied with a small laugh. Their eyes met for a moment, and something warm and unspoken passed between them before they both looked away. The afternoon melted into evening as they arranged furniture, Emily's few pieces supplemented by donations from church members. An overstuffed armchair that Jack declared perfect for reading bedtime stories. A coffee table that Lily immediately covered with board games, a soft rug that Noah sprawled on, continuing his latest car drawing. "Look, Mom," Noah held up his sketch. "It's Mr. Jack's truck." Emily leaned down to examine the crayon drawing. Despite its childish style, she could clearly see the old blue pickup that had become such a familiar sight in their lives. Noah had even included the dent in the passenger door from when Jack had taught Lily to drive. "It's wonderful, sweetheart," she said, ruffling his hair. "Maybe we can frame it." "Really?" Noah's face lit up. "Can we put it right there?" He pointed to the wall beside the front door. "I think that's the perfect spot," Jack said, already reaching for his toolbox. "Every home needs good artwork." As Jack hung the drawing, Mrs. Henderson from next door appeared on the front porch with a covered casserole dish. "Welcome to the neighborhood," she called through the screen door. "I brought my famous lasagna." Noah ran to open the door, beaming with pride. "Thank you. Come see my room. My grandpa helped me paint it blue." He grabbed Jack's hand, pulling him forward. "This is him!" Emily froze, waiting for Jack's reaction, but he just smiled warmly and extended his free hand to Mrs. Henderson. His eyes shone with emotion as Noah continued chattering about their painting adventure. The neighbor stayed for a few minutes, praising Noah's artwork and commenting on the cheerful paint colors. When she left, they gathered around the kitchen table, still covered in brown paper from painting, and shared the lasagna straight from the dish, paper plates balanced on their laps. Emily looked around at her tiny kitchen, filled with the people who had become her family. Lily was teaching Noah how to twirl spaghetti on his fork. Jack sat quietly beside her, his shoulder occasionally brushing hers as he reached for the garlic bread. This was what safety felt like, she realized. Not just locks and walls, but people who chose to stay, who helped paint rooms and hang children's artwork and bring extra garlic bread just because they knew you liked it. For the first time in years, Emily felt her shoulders fully relax. Through the window, she could see the scraggly rose bushes Jack had mentioned. Tomorrow, they would learn how to prune them back, how to encourage new growth from old wood. But for tonight, she simply sat in the warmth of her new kitchen, surrounded by the soft murmur of voices she had come to love, and allowed herself to feel at peace. The late spring breeze carried the sweet scent of blooming dogwoods across Riverside Park. Emily spread a red-checkered blanket on a grassy slope overlooking the playground, while Jack unpacked their picnic basket. Overhead, puffy white clouds drifted lazily across a brilliant blue sky. "Mom, can we have the frisbee now?" Noah bounced on his toes, practically vibrating with excitement. His earlier shyness had melted away over the past months, replaced by the natural exuberance of an 8-year-old who finally felt safe. "After we set up lunch," Emily said, smoothing the blanket's wrinkles, "why don't you help Mr. Jack with the plates?" "Here you go, buddy." Jack handed Noah a stack of paper plates, then pulled out containers of fried chicken, potato salad, and fresh strawberries. "Careful not to drop them." Lily emerged from the car carrying a jug of lemonade. "I made it myself this morning," she announced proudly. With real lemons, not powder, they worked together, setting out their feast with the comfortable rhythm of people who'd shared many meals. When everything was arranged, Emily sat back on her heels and took in the scene. The abundant food, the sunny day, and most importantly, the people who'd become her family. After grace, they dug in, passing dishes back and forth. Noah ate with gusto, sauce dotting his chin. Emily handed him a napkin, her heart full at the sight of his healthy appetite. Gone were the days of stretching every meal, of lying awake, worried about empty cupboards. "This chicken's amazing," Jack said between bites. "Did you use your mother's recipe?" Emily nodded. "Finally got brave enough to try it. Took me 3 attempts to get it right. Well, it was worth the practice." He smiled at her, that gentle expression that still made her heart skip. When the edge of hunger was satisfied, Noah tugged at Lily's sleeve. "Can we play now, please?" "Sure, Squirt." Lily ruffled his hair as she stood. "Let me grab the frisbee from the car." They watched the children race across the grass, Lily's long hair streaming behind her as she showed Noah how to flick his wrist just right to make the frisbee soar. Their laughter carried on the breeze, punctuated by excited shouts of, "I got it!" and "Throw it higher!" Emily drew her knees up to her chest, wrapping her arms around them. "Do you remember that night at the diner?" she asked softly. Jack turned toward her. "Which night?" "The first one. When you asked if I was safe." She picked at a loose thread on the blanket. No one had ever noticed before, or if they did, they didn't say anything. "I remember," Jack said quietly. "You looked so startled, like a deer caught in headlights." "I was terrified," Emily admitted. "But also relieved, like I could finally stop pretending everything was okay." She watched Noah leap to catch the frisbee, his face glowing with joy. That one question changed everything. Jack's hand found hers on the blanket, warm and steady. "You did all the hard work, Emily. You found the courage to leave, to start over." She shook her head. "I wouldn't have made it without you and Lily. Those first weeks, especially. Fixing the locks, bringing groceries, just being there." her voice caught. "You didn't just save my life, you saved Noah's future." "Anyone would have helped," Jack said modestly. "No," Emily's voice was firm. "Most people look away. It's easier than getting involved. But you looked right at me and saw what I was trying so hard to hide." She squeezed his hand. "You gave us hope when we needed it most." From the playground came peals of laughter as Lily chased Noah around the swing set, the frisbee forgotten. Emily watched them play, remembering how withdrawn Noah had been just months ago. Now he ran and laughed freely, secure in the knowledge that he was safe and loved. "Look at them," she said softly. "Sometimes I still can't believe this is real, that we get to have this." Jack's thumb traced gentle circles on her palm. "You deserve every bit of happiness, Emily. Both of you do." She turned to look at him, really look at him, the silver threading his temples, the laugh lines around his eyes, the quiet strength in his bearing. For the first time in years, she felt her smile reach all the way to her eyes, spreading warmth through her whole being. "Mom!" Noah called, waving frantically. "Watch this!" He spun in a circle, arms outstretched, then flopped dramatically onto the grass. Lily collapsed beside him, both of them giggling. Emily laughed, the sound carrying across the park, free and unrestrained, no longer muffled by fear. Jack watched her, his eyes soft with understanding, and something deeper, something that spoke of new beginnings and second chances. The afternoon sun painted everything in warm gold, catching the highlights in Emily's hair and the sparkle in her eyes. She leaned back on her hands, face tilted toward the sky, soaking in the perfect moment with her newfound family, not bound by blood, but by something just as strong: compassion, courage, and love. What would you do if you were in their place? Comment your answer below, and let's see how you'd rewrite the ending. If you enjoyed the story of Jack Reynolds, I handpicked the next story that you will enjoy. Please don't miss this one. Click here to watch it.